Even with other AAA duds and poor ports this year, including the Callisto Protocol and Forspoken, there is no doubt that Redfall is the most disappointing game of the year. What's up, nerds? Welcome to Endgame. I'm Hoops4, and today I am going to give you my review of Redfall and discuss why it is the most disappointing game of the year and the potentially widespread impact that its catastrophic launch could have. Redfall is the newest first-person shooter developed by Arkane Austin, developers of Dishonored and Prey, and published by the Xbox-acquired Bethesda Softworks. But even with these heavy-hitting names, Redfall has fallen flat in almost every metric. As one of the most anticipated games from Xbox's lackluster first-party catalog, there were high hopes that this game would deliver a must-play experience. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into the dramatic flop that is Redfall, and enter gaming. Enter gaming. Redfall has been making the rounds this week for, well, basically every aspect of its existence. The highly anticipated game has struggled in everything from marketing to gameplay to the world it's in and plenty more. Before we get too much further, let's discuss the game itself. Redfall sees you fighting vampires and cultists around the isolated and mutilated town of Redfall, Massachusetts. It's a first-person shooter with a variety of weapons ranging from standard firearms to flare guns and UV ray weapons. Vampires have taken over the town, led by the self-proclaimed Hollow Man, and have amassed a great cult following throughout the town. You play as one of 4 characters with unique abilities and upgrade trees, as you try to take back the neighborhoods from the control of vampires and cultists. Play solo or with friends as you wrestle with evil forces to liberate the town. Unfortunately, this potentially incredible setting has been wasted. In Arkane Studios' previous works, including Dishonored, Prey, and even Deathloop, the immersive sims have been capitalized by breathtaking world building, exciting opportunities, and fascinating characters. That's one reason why Redfall's world stings so bad. There's almost none of that. The world is bland and boring, with meaningful interactions being few and far between. The characters have poor writing that is not at all convincing, and the gameplay was developed with a mixed bag in mind. That is, absolutely torn between being a single or multiplayer experience. The result is a disappointing mess with so little cohesion between its ideas, it's like patching a crumbling house with scotch tape and calling it a day. Besides the devastatingly bad gameplay loop, it's also worth mentioning the technical issues that have plagued the game since launch. The game has basically been released in an unfinished state. From the initial boot up of the game, it can be seen that the graphics are okay. I played the game on Series X, and there was nothing exceptional about the graphics. They are passable, but nothing noteworthy given the new-gen console. Part of that comes down to the Xbox model of needing to run on Series S, X, and PC, but that's a discussion for another time. Furthermore, the performance is just, well, it's terrible. Within the first couple of hours, I had frame rate drops from just walking through the uninspired world to get to my next objective. That's not even mentioning the massive frames drop in any scene with the slightest particle effects. To give an idea of how significant this is, let me fill you in. One of the most basic ways to kill a vampire in Redfall is to whittle its health down with standard weapons, and then, as lore would have it, drive a wooden stake into its heart. This should be a super cool effect, similar to tearing a core in Ghostwire Tokyo, except in this case, you can only see a handful of frames in the animation due to the ridiculous FPS drops. Seriously, in one of the most core mechanics in the entire game, one that will be used in nearly every significant combat encounter, there are crazy frame drops due to the particle effects in the animation. And that's almost every single time. Moving on from the technical issues, the enemies are exhausting. For the most part, the standard cultist AI has the aim of a stormtrooper and the intelligence of Patrick Star. They say the same repetitive voice lines over and over again, with no meaningful dialogue between them. And it's not even entertaining dialogue either, which makes it that much worse. As far as combat goes, while you can still get overwhelmed in groups, especially while playing solo, there are still plenty of instances where the dumb bot will simply walk up a couple feet in front of you and start unsuccessfully firing away. I may actually need to downgrade my intelligence comparison from Patrick Star to his pet rock. It's that impressively poor. Have I mentioned bugs yet? Because there are plenty of those too, and game-breaking ones at that. Once again, in the first couple of hours, I had a quest completely break. I walked around my objective to discover that all the enemies were invisible, or at least not spawned properly. There were conversations happening around me from non-existent enemies that couldn't see me either, and there was clearly a vampire mini-boss in our midst that was supposed to be there, but only its magic veil appeared instead. Quest broken. On another note entirely, the game is so torn between identities that James McAvoy's character in Split has less of them. It just doesn't know what kind of game it should be. Should it be a single-player immersive sim like the studio has had rampant success with? Should it be a live service title like the abysmal Avengers and forever delayed Suicide Squad? Is it a 4-player looter shooter like Borderlands with vampires? I don't know what the end goal was, but it turned into a sort of Far Cry-like experience with friends. This by itself is not inherently a bad thing. However, it's the mixing pot of ideas that waters down the experience to a tasteless adventure with friends. That's not to say there are no redeeming qualities with the game, especially with friends. There are moments where the game can be fun, and you can see glimpses of the developer's vision. However, it feels like there were so many pivots in development that the vision was overall lost in the mix. And playing the game with friends is the way to do it. As it stands, it can be insinuated that multiplayer was supposed to be the core game mode, and single player was the afterthought, which is a bit weird for the studio. For example, more than one of the playable characters has an ability that is made to interact with teammates. Well, if you're playing solo, that's potentially 1 out of 3 abilities for your character that is now basically useless, and that's a shame. All of this being said, does it boil down to the most disappointing game of the year? Taking a look at the track record of Arkane Studios, they have developed some incredible titles like Dishonored and Prey, even Deathloop, which, granted, had its issues, reviewed very, very well. Redfall is such a far cry from these games, pun intended, that it was just not expected from a studio with such a high pedigree. Hopefully it is just a blip in their release record, and they can move forward to delivering more favorable games in the future. That is not even mentioning the marketing debacle. It was said before launch that the game would be 60 frames per second, and it's not. It's 30, and a poor and ridiculously inconsistent 30 at that. The cover art for the game was even reportedly printed with 60 FPS on it, requiring a sticker to cover it and display the correct 30 FPS instead. And mind you, we've only been talking about the Xbox port in this video. This is not even to cover the PC port that has had a variety of issues of its own. Furthermore, this is one of the first-party games released after Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda Softworks. And if you don't know, Arkane Studios is one of the studios underneath Bethesda. Everyone has said, Xbox fan or not, that Redfall and Starfield are 2 games of 2023 that can make or break Xbox as a console of first-party game developers. With the talent behind development, money in the overarching company structure, and anticipation for an Xbox exclusive to shake the market, there is no doubt that Redfall is the most disappointing game of the year. And now, for Xbox, more rides on Starfield than ever before. Redfall's lack of identity, performance issues, bland world, and uninspired gameplay have dealt Arkane Studios and Xbox a massive blow to their records. With all the issues, I am giving Redfall a measly and disappointing 4 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Let me know down in the comments what you have thought thus far about Redfall, and consider subscribing for more content. It would help me out a ton. Thank you guys again. I'll see you nerds on the next one. Peace. Thank you for watching, right here on InGame. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.